Was it to be expected that we'd see threats from Russia over Ukraine's desire to join NATO?
Look, it's been an issue for a very long period of time. From the Russian perspective, they've always been worried about the expansion of NATO towards their frontiers. At various different times, the discussion about has been a red line for Russia about the Ukraine joining NATO. But of course, what we've seen is the outright aggression from Vladimir Putin and from Russia. He's not someone who respects international law. He's not someone who respects sovereignties of other states. He's someone who's used various different tactics at various different times on the states bordering Russia to sow discord and discontent, or to basically impose Russian interest upon those states. And I think we've seen that if, he's constantly said NATO is something that should be broken up or something that should be pushed back. Well, the outcome of his illegal war and immoral war in Ukraine is the expansion of NATO. And what we're seeing now is a greater emphasis on collective defence amongst the European countries and the expansion of NATO to include these countries. So it's been a real rejection of the Vladimir Putin thesis and Russian approach. And we've seen that basically only by that collective action can we really get that resistance against Russia and autocratic leaders like Vladimir Putin.
Australia is sending another 30 Bushmasters to help Ukraine. Is that going to be enough?
Look, I think there's got to be a careful calibration here. Of course, everybody wants to support, or the majority of Australians and politicians want to support Ukraine. We need to target, and continually the government needs to target and calibrate what's the best way to achieve that. Is that through providing additional ammunition? Is that providing additional cash or loans? Is that through providing Bushmasters or other vehicles? This also has to be offset by the fact that the government was given a Defence Strategic Review earlier this year, which highlighted once again that there is an end of warning time in the Indo-Pacific, that there is a fundamental focus for Australia's defence efforts on that original region. And I think what we need to understand is that that we're not a European power and a European country. We have enormous interest at stake here about the sovereignty of states, about international law and the rules-based international order. And I think the government's done a good job of diplomatically supporting that, but also economically and financially supporting Ukraine. But for those who continue to call for a massive expansion of our aid and our endeavours into Ukraine, particularly our military equipment going to Ukraine, the question has to be asked then, well, what about our own security in our own region, which the DSR has pointed out is of an enormous sense of urgency. And of course, for the government, the broader question is, if they're going to continue to provide that financial support to the Ukraine, where is it going to come from in the budget? Because ambitions are limitless and resources are finite. The money has to come from somewhere. Largely, that money is being dealt with out of the existing defence budget. And the key question there is that sustainable, given the commitment that the government's made to implementing the Defence Strategic Review and focusing on security in our region. So it's a real balancing act for the government here. As I said, it's critically important that we support Ukraine. It's about calibrating that to the right level, both financially and military aid-wise, and continuing to have a dialogue with the Ukraine and with the other NATO countries. Because what's really important about this stuff here as well is that we don't provide aid to Ukraine that they don't specifically need, or that is doubling up on the types of equipment that other states are giving. So coordination of our response is really critically important. And I think the government's done a pretty good job of calibrating that. And the question we all have to ask, if we want to give more to Ukraine, where is that going to come from, either within the federal budget or from within the defence portfolio, when there are so many other pressures that we need to manage now and into the future in our region?
Peter Dean, we have to leave it there. Thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.